Retaliation feels like you are being singled out, that you have a target on your back, that now everything's changed and you're being treated differently. And going to work could feel really hard and miserable because now you're being looked at differently. Now you're labeled and you know something's coming down the pipeline and you're scared. Typically, the employee will be treated differently. So management might be standoffish, or coworkers might be ignoring that employee. So there's a change in the dynamic and the relationship sometimes after an employee makes a complaint. A common scenario that we see when an employee speaks up is that they are suddenly excessively scrutinized after they make a complaint. They are micromanaged even more. They're written up, given a PIP, or they could be terminated. Something adverse happens right after that complaint, and that's what signals to us that there's a presumption that this adverse action is retaliatory. An employee will realize that something isn't right after whistleblowing because they're being treated differently, or something adverse happens like a schedule change, a demotion, a write-up, management's hostile or ignoring you, passive aggressiveness. Something in the workplace will change and the employee will likely notice that right after they make a complaint. I think a lot of people second guess themselves after they report something to their employer because now they may feel like their livelihood's on the line, their employment's on the line, or they're being treated differently by coworkers or management. And they second guess what they did because they don't want to lose their job or their friends or be viewed differently than others in the workplace or looked down on for management, especially if you're a high performer and you really care about the work you do. And now all of a sudden you're being treated differently because you made a valid complaint. That's hard. So retaliation can be excessive scrutiny, unwarranted write-ups or disciplinary action. It could be wrongful termination. It could be demotion, unequal pay. It could be isolation, manipulation, intimidation, hostility. There's a lot of different things that could be retaliation. And so that's why it's so important to talk to an employment law attorney to say, hey, is this right? Is this retaliation? Subtle forms of retaliation could be isolation, where they're sort of ignored at work or subjected to the passive aggressive conduct from management or your boss, or a schedule change, or the excuse that your job has been eliminated. An employee might believe that when in reality, this could be retaliation. If an employee makes a complaint and all of a sudden they're excluded from meetings that they always attended, or they're being omitted from email chains that they typically would be in, this is exclusion. This is a response to a complaint that might be retaliation. Retaliation does not have to happen immediately. We often see where it rises to that level. An employer might wait a month, 2 months, 3 months to execute that retaliatory adverse action, but it could still be actionable retaliation. So it doesn't have to be an instant adverse action. It could accrue over time. So I think employers sometimes wait to do the retaliatory act because they know that the employee just complained and they want to make sure there's enough time in between the complaint and the adverse action to try to justify or defend their action. The first step an employee should take if they feel like they're being retaliated against is document, write it down, send it into HR or management, and make sure you're creating your paper trail in real time because it's so important to tell your story right when it's happening, as opposed to not having any documentation and now you're fired and you're trying to fight for your employee rights, but you don't have any proof to show that you were making these complaints. Employees should document what they're experiencing or what they reasonably believe is unlawful conduct. Write it down. And it should be detailed. Be as detailed as possible so that there's no dispute. The more detailed you are, the more likely the employer is either going to listen or have an inability to fight back or defend themselves because you were so explicit and detailed in your description of what was taking place in the workplace. An employee should communicate in writing. If you communicate verbally, it's likely going to be that that conversation never happened. Put it in writing, then there's no dispute. Sometimes employees are told things by the employer or HR that are not entirely accurate. So it's important to cross your T's and dot your I's when you're an employee. If you feel like the employer or HR is being dishonest and not documenting appropriately or changing the facts or the story, write your side of the story, respond, provide a counter, a rebuttal. Do something so that you are documenting your story. Your story is being told as well. Don't let the employer have the control of the narrative. Take control of the narrative by documenting what you're experiencing in real time. An employee should continue reporting internally. Don't stop. Keep going. Keep telling your story. Make your complaints in writing, and don't stop until something's done. And if something adverse is done to you, that's when you go talk to an attorney. An employee should avoid being confrontational. It's important to make a complaint, but don't do it in a confrontational, adversarial manner. Do it in an informative, proactive manner and show your professionalism. We're talking about a workplace, so professionalism is required. And we want to show you as the utmost professional employee that was making a valid complaint. Let the employer do something wrong. Let them act confrontational or adversarial. But maintain your composure, be yourself, and be professional. At any point an employee feels like they are being a victim of retaliation, they should seek legal advice right away. Talk to somebody. Have a free consultation. Tell your story. Have an attorney listen so that they can tell you if you have a case or not. I think waiting too long to take action can hurt someone's case because they might not be getting the appropriate advice. They might not be documenting what they need to document, and they might have a statute of limitations issue. Acting swiftly or as soon as possible is really important. Early guidance can change the outcome in a retaliation case because early guidance will give the employee input and insight on what they need to do, what evidence they need to gather, what complaints they need to make. And in doing this, they help preserve the evidence and preserve the narrative of what's actually taking place. If an employee speaks up and it made their situation worse, it's sad, it's hard. But I would say you did the right thing. Be proud of yourself. It may not have worked out the way you wanted, and you may be in a difficult place, suffering hardship, but you did the right thing. You should still speak up. It's so important. Silence is complacent, and I encourage people to speak up even if it results in a termination, because at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you. And if you feel that making a complaint is right for you, do it. Employees are protected from retaliation when they report misconduct. They might be fired or subjected to some adverse action, but they are protected under the law. And so you have options. It might feel like a really scary, terrible time, but talk to an attorney and talk about what your options are. And you might be able to advocate for those rights and hold the employer accountable. I understand when employees are scared and they're worried that if they make a complaint, it's going to get worse. I understand that. But I would also encourage an employee that they do have a voice and they have the option. You have the option to either speak up or be silent, and that's okay. But if you want change, the only way you're going to get that change is to first speak up.